Today we're going over the most epic comeback stories in history. Alfred the Great. It's April 871, and the island of Britain has been transformed into a war zone. Those small Viking parties had raided the coast of Britain for decades. This time it was much different. 6 years ago, hundreds of Viking ships made landfall in East Anglia, and the Great Heathen Army with numbers in the thousands set foot on British soil with their wives, children, and toolmakers. This army had no interest in simple looting. This time they were here as conquerors. The Vikings were ruthless warriors, and within 2 years the once mighty English kingdoms of Northumbria and East Anglia had fallen into their control. In 871, the heathen army finally turns its attention to the kingdom of Wessex, and King Ethelred and his brother Alfred lead their army into battle against the Viking invaders. The two forces engage in 9 brutal battles over the span of a year, and momentum swings back and forth like a championship fight. But soon, more Viking reinforcements arrive in Britain, and their numbers are simply too much for Ethelred's army of conscripted farmers and merchants. In the Battle of Merton, the king is wounded, and he soon dies of his injuries. The 22-year-old Alfred mourns the loss of his fourth and final brother. He never wanted to be king. He had plans for a quiet life filled with reading and learning about the wonders of the world. But now he was the only one left, and the grim responsibility for leading his people against the greatest threat his kingdom had ever faced was thrust onto his shoulders. As Alfred was preparing for his brother's funeral, the Vikings attacked again, destroying what was left of his already battered army. With no other options, Alfred pays the Vikings to leave. The Great Heathen Army takes the treasure and goes on to attack the neighboring kingdom of Mercia. They are unstoppable, and by 875 Alfred's kingdom of Wessex is the last remaining English kingdom free of Viking rule. With the complete conquest of the island looking like an inevitability, more Danes pour into Britain, and the Viking army in the south, led by a monstrous man named Guthrum, sees an opportunity to snuff out the last pocket of English independence. He assembles his men and marches towards Wessex. Now, Alfred was in a really bad situation when he paid off the Vikings the last time, but he didn't waste the time he had bought and had fully rebuilt his army. He was ready for them. And while the Vikings are looting the town of Wareham, he traps them in the city. As hard as Alfred tries to force them out, the Vikings prove to be pretty good at withstanding sieges. And eventually, Alfred turns to diplomacy instead. Okay, now, I want you guys to pinky swear on that ring you got there that you said was for your god of Thor, right? Okay, so you promise to leave Wessex alone and go back north. Deal. The Vikings swear on their sacred arm ring. This is a huge deal in Norse culture. Breaking an oath sworn on this ring is the ultimate dishonor. Alfred believes them. He lets them go. 2 months later, Guthrum attacks the neighboring kingdom of Exeter. The sacred oath meant nothing. Alfred marches to help, but by the time he arrives, Exeter has fallen. The Vikings are winning everywhere. Every kingdom that resists gets crushed. Every king who fights ends up dead or in chains. Alfred retreats back to Wessex. It's January 878, midwinter, the Christmas season, a time of peace and celebration even during wartime. Everyone knows you don't fight in winter. The cold, the mud, the impossibility of moving large armies through frozen landscapes. Winter is for feasting and waiting for spring. Guthrum knows this too, which is exactly why he attacks. On the 12th night of Christmas, when Alfred and his court are celebrating at Chippenham, the Vikings strike. No warning, no declaration. Just thousands of warriors pouring into the royal estate in the dead of night. Alfred's guards fight desperately, but they're overwhelmed in minutes. The king barely escapes with his life, grabbing whatever men he can and fleeing into the night. Behind him, Chippenham burns. His nobles are killed or captured. His treasury is looted. His kingdom's heart is ripped out in a single night. Alfred runs. There's no other word for it. The king of Wessex, last hope of England, runs for his life through frozen forests with maybe 40 men. They head southwest into the Somerset marshes, a vast wetland that most people avoid. It's miserable territory. Cold, wet, full of disease, carrying insects even in winter. But it's also impossible for a large army to navigate. Alfred and his men reach a small island in the marshes called Athelney. It's barely more than a hill surrounded by swamp, but it's defensible. It's hidden, and it's all they have. This is the lowest point in English history. Every English kingdom except Wessex has fallen, and now Wessex has fallen too. The Vikings control everything. Alfred is a fugitive king hiding in a swamp with a handful of survivors. Most of his people think he's dead. Those who know he's alive think he's abandoned them. He's 28 years old. He's lost 4 brothers. He's lost his kingdom. He's lost everything. And here's the worst part. One night, cold and starving, Alfred seeks shelter in a peasant woman's hut. She doesn't recognize him as a king. He's just another ragged refugee to her. She tells him to watch some cakes. She's baking while she goes to gather firewood. Alfred sits by the fire, lost in thought, planning, trying to figure out how one man with 40 soldiers can defeat an army of thousands. He doesn't notice the cakes burning. The woman returns and sees her food ruined. She doesn't know she's yelling at the King of England. "You lazy fool. You can't even watch some cakes? You're happy enough to eat them, but can't be bothered to keep them from burning." Alfred apologizes, takes a scolding. Because what else can he do? He's a king without a kingdom, hiding in a swamp, and he can't even be trusted to watch some cakes. This is rock bottom. This is the moment when most people would give up, when they'd take whatever ships they could find and flee to France. Start over somewhere else. Anywhere else. Alfred doesn't leave. Because here's the thing about Alfred. He was a scholar. He'd traveled to Rome as a child. He spoke Latin. He'd read philosophy and history. He knew the stories of how Rome fell, how civilizations collapsed when good men did nothing. He understood that if England fell to the Vikings, centuries of Christian Anglo-Saxon culture would be erased. The learning, the laws, the very idea of England would vanish. So he stayed, and he started planning. Spring comes to the Somerset marshes in 878. Alfred has been hiding at Athelney for 3 months, but he hasn't been idle. He's turned that muddy island into a fortress. Wooden walls, watchtowers, supply caches, and most importantly, he's been sending messages. Secret messengers slip through Viking-controlled territory carrying a simple message. "The king lives. Join me." At first, nobody comes. Why would they? The war is over. The Vikings won. Resistance is suicide. But then a few warriors arrive. Then a few more. Men who'd rather die fighting than live under Viking rule. By late March, Alfred has maybe 200 men at Athelney. It's not an army. It's barely a war band. But it's enough to start. Alfred begins guerrilla warfare. Hit and run attacks. The Vikings control the major towns and roads, but the marshes and forests belong to Alfred. His men know the terrain. They strike Viking supply trains at dawn and vanish into the swamps. They ambush scouting parties. They burn isolated farmsteads where Vikings have settled. The Vikings can't catch them. Every time Guthrum sends soldiers into the marshes, they either get lost or ambushed. Alfred is using the land itself as a weapon. The Vikings are conquerors, but Alfred is fighting for his home. He knows every path, every hidden crossing, every piece of solid ground in that swamp. By April, Guthrum is furious. The war was supposed to be over. England was supposed to be conquered, but this ghost king keeps attacking, keeps surviving, keeps refusing to die like he's supposed to. Alfred's raids get bolder. He attacks larger targets, takes back villages, liberates English prisoners, and every victory, no matter how small, sends a message. We're not done. We're still fighting. More men arrive at Athelney. Dozens become hundreds. By early May, Alfred has perhaps 1,000 warriors. Still not enough to face Guthrum's army in open battle, but enough to make the Vikings nervous. And that's when Alfred makes his move. He sends messengers to every Saxon nobleman in Wessex, Somerset, and Wiltshire. The message is simple. Meet me at Egbert's Stone. Early May. Come armed. It's a massive gamble. If the lords don't come, Alfred has revealed his position for nothing. Guthrum will hunt him down and kill him. The rebellion will be crushed before it really begins. But if they do come, early May, 878. Dawn at Egbert's Stone, an ancient marker on the border between Somerset and Wiltshire. Alfred stands there with his core group of warriors. maybe 200 men. They've marched through the night from Athelney, leaving the safety of the marshes for the first time in 4 months. The sun rises. They wait. Nothing. An hour passes. Alfred's men start to look nervous. Maybe the lords aren't coming. Maybe they've submitted to Guthrum. Maybe England really is finished. Then someone sees it. On the eastern horizon. Banners. 1 banner. Then 5. Then dozens. Then hundreds. The lords of Somerset arrive first. Lord Athelney with 300 men. Then the Wiltshire contingent under Osric. Then Hampshire under Eadwulf. Every Saxon nobleman who hasn't bent the knee to Vikings. Every warrior who's been hiding, waiting, hoping for a chance to fight back. They keep coming. By mid-morning, 4,000 men stand at Egbert's Stone, and when they see Alfred, their king, alive, ready to fight, they kneel. 4,000 warriors go down on one knee before a man who 3 months ago was hiding in a swamp eating burnt cakes. Alfred looks at them, these farmers and merchants and craftsmen who've left their homes to fight an army that's crushed every force sent against them. He knows most of them will die in the coming battle. He knows this is probably suicide. He gives them the truth. I won't lie to you. Guthrum has more men, better weapons, more experience. By every measure, we should lose this fight. But we're not fighting for treasure. We're not fighting for glory. We're fighting so our children don't grow up speaking Danish. So our churches don't become pagan temples. So England doesn't vanish from history like it never existed. He draws his sword. If we win, they'll remember us forever. If we lose, at least we lose standing up. I'm marching to Chippenham, to the place where this war started. Anyone who wants to go home, I understand. Anyone who wants to fight, follow me. Not a single man leaves. The army marches northeast. 4,000 men moving to the countryside, gathering more volunteers as they go. By the time they reach Edington, a small village near Chippenham, they've grown perhaps 4,500 strong. Guthrum hears they're coming. He assembles his own army. 5,000 Vikings, veterans of 100 battles. They march to meet Alfred at Edington. May 878. The two armies face each other across a field. This is it. Everything comes down to this. If Alfred loses, England dies. If he wins, there's hope. The Vikings attack first. They always do. Screaming, roaring, smashing into the Saxon shield wall like a hammer on an anvil. The sound is deafening. Metal on metal. Men screaming. Shields cracking. The Saxon line holds. Barely. This is what Anglo-Saxon warfare is about. The shield wall. Every man locks his shield with the men beside him, creating an impenetrable wall of wood and metal. The Vikings are fierce, but the Saxons are desperate. They have nowhere to retreat to. This is the last stand. For hours they fight. Neither side gives ground. Men in the front ranks fight until they're too exhausted to lift their weapons. Then the second rank pushes through and continues the battle. Bodies pile up. The ground turns to mud mixed with blood. By midday, both armies are exhausted. This is the moment. Whoever has the strength for one more push will win. Alfred sees it. The Viking line is stretched thin. They've been attacking all morning and they're tired. There's a gap, just a small one, near the right flank. He makes a decision. Instead of holding the shield wall, Alfred orders a counterattack. He personally leads a wedge of his best warriors straight at that gap. It's insane. Kings don't do this. Kings stay in the back in command. But Alfred isn't just a king. He's a man who's lost everything and spent 3 months eating burnt cakes in a swamp. He has nothing left to lose. The Saxon wedge smashes into the Viking line. Alfred is at the front, sword swinging. His men follow, screaming, pushing, shoving, and the Viking line breaks. Once a shield wall breaks, the battle is over. The Vikings try to reform, but the Saxons pour through the gap. Suddenly, it's not a battle anymore. It's a rout. The Vikings run. Alfred's men chase them all the way back to Chippenham, the fortress where this nightmare started. The Vikings barricade themselves inside, hoping to withstand a siege like they did at Wareham. But Alfred isn't negotiating this time. He surrounds a fortress and waits. No food goes in. No water goes in. After 2 weeks, the Vikings are starving. They surrender. Guthrum comes out of the fortress and kneels before Alfred, the man who burned Chippenham, who drove Alfred into the marshes, who came closer than anyone to conquering all of England. He kneels before the king he thought he'd destroyed. Alfred could kill him, probably should kill him. Guthrum broke a sacred oath. He slaughtered Alfred's people. He deserves death. But Alfred is thinking long-term. He can't kill every Viking in Britain. There are too many, and more will keep coming. He needs peace, real peace, not the fake peace of Wareham. So Alfred makes an offer. You can keep the north, Northumbria, East Anglia, they're yours. I won't try to take them back. But Wessex and Mercia stay English. And you swear a real oath this time, not on your ring. You convert to Christianity. Guthrum stares at him. Converting means accepting defeat, means admitting the Christian God is stronger than the Norse gods. It's the ultimate humiliation. But Guthrum is out of options. He agrees. June 878. At Wedmore, Guthrum is baptized as a Christian. He takes the name Athelstan. Alfred stands as his godfather. The ceremony is bizarre. A Viking warlord accepting Christian baptism while his men watch in confusion. But it's symbolic. It means submission. It means peace. The Treaty of Wedmore divides England. The north becomes a Danelaw, Viking territory. The south remains English. It's not perfect. Half of England is still controlled by Vikings, but half is better than none. And more importantly, the war is over. Guthrum keeps his word this time. He rules the Danelaw for 12 years and never attacks Wessex again. The baptism meant something. The treaty holds. Alfred returns to his kingdom. He's won. Against impossible odds, starting from literally nothing, he's won. England survives. But Alfred knows the victory is fragile. The Vikings will come again. Maybe not Guthrum, but others. There are always more Vikings. So Alfred gets to work. First, he builds defenses, not just castles. He creates a network of fortified towns called across Wessex. Every major settlement gets walls, watchtowers, and permanent garrisons. The system is brilliant. Any Viking raid will hit a defended town within a day's march. No more surprise attacks like Chippenham. Second, he builds a navy, the first real English navy in history. If Vikings want to attack, they'll have to get through English ships first. Alfred commissions massive warships, bigger than anything the Vikings have. When the next Danish fleet arrives in 885, Alfred's navy destroys it at sea. The Vikings never try a naval invasion again. Third, and this is the one that really matters, Alfred rebuilds English culture. Remember, he was a scholar before he was a warrior. He establishes schools, translates important Latin texts into English so common people can read them, creates a unified law code based on old English traditions and Christian principles. This law code becomes the foundation of English common law, the legal system that eventually spreads to America, Canada, Australia, half the world. Alfred isn't just fighting Vikings. He's building a nation. Before Alfred, England was just a collection of kingdoms that happened to speak the same language. After Alfred, England is an idea, a unified culture with shared laws, shared language, shared identity. The proof comes in the next generation. Alfred's son Edward and his daughter Ethelflaed continue his work. They push into the Danelaw, building buzz, forcing Viking settlers to accept English rule. By 918, 40 years after Edington, most of the Danelaw is back under English control. Alfred's grandson Athelstan, named after the baptized Guthrum, becomes the first king to truly rule all of England in 927. The dream Alfred fought for in the marshes becomes reality. And here's the thing. Every English monarch since traces their lineage back to Alfred. Every king, every queen, for over 1,000 years. William the Conqueror claimed legitimacy by marrying into Alfred's bloodline. The current British royal family traces back to him. Alfred is the only English king ever called the Great, not because he won one battle, not because he conquered territory, but because he saved a civilization from extinction and then rebuilt it stronger than before. In 899, Alfred dies at age 50. He spent his final years doing what he always wanted, translating books, writing philosophy, being a scholar. He earned that peaceful retirement by doing the thing he never wanted to do, being a warrior king when his people needed one. Think about the complete arc of this story. In January 878, Alfred was hiding in a swamp eating burnt cakes, getting yelled at by a peasant woman who didn't know he was a king. His kingdom was destroyed. His army was scattered. Every other English kingdom had fallen. By every reasonable measure, England was finished. 20 years later, England was united, defended, and thriving. The Vikings were contained. English culture was experiencing a renaissance. Alfred had gone from the lowest point in English history to creating the foundation for one of history's greatest civilizations. From burnt cakes to building an empire. From fugitive to founder of a nation. From the marshes of Athelney to Westminster Abbey, where his descendants will be crowned for centuries. That's not just a comeback. That's the comeback. The most complete reversal in medieval history. The moment when one man's refusal to quit literally changed the course of Western civilization. England exists because Alfred refused to accept defeat when defeat was the only logical option. Because when he had every reason to run, to hide, to give up and sail to France and start over, he stayed and fought. Because he understood that some things are worth dying for, and the survival of your people is at the top of that list. The Vikings were fiercer warriors. They had more men, better weapons, more experience. They conquered every other kingdom. By all logic, they should have won. But they didn't account for one thing. They didn't account for a scholar who never wanted to be king finding the strength to become the greatest king England ever had. They didn't account for Alfred the Great.